Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. We've got a very special guest. I was just berating him, even though he's taking his free time to talk with us about how he's so busy because he's a friggin' world champion. All of a sudden you attach how many times have you won a world championship?
Well, one in IPSC, but then I had, I think 3 or 4 more speed challenges, steel challenge type stuff.
So a few.
A few, yes.
A few national.
Couple
city-wide titles.
Yeah.
Mr. JJ Racaza. What's JJ stand for?
Joseph Jr.
Joseph Jr. Racaza.
It's not even my real name. It's like my real name's Simon, but my dad called me JJ as my nickname in shooting, and so everyone kind of just followed my dad. That's how it ended.
Did your dad shoot?
Yeah.
Is he good?
Yeah, he was pretty good.
And then one day you just started beating him?
No, well, here's a funny story. I'm gonna fast forward and then I'm gonna backtrack.
Okay.
2006, I won my first world championship, right? Steel challenge. Remember holding a trophy, and it didn't make sense because it's Rob Latham, my idols, Jerry Miculek, and they're all clapping, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. This happened to me. I didn't think this was gonna ever happen. I was too far-fetched from it because my career started in the Philippines. So with that said, we go into the hotel, and I have all these checks from the cash and the records that I broke that year and stage wins and stuff like that, and then my overall prize. And I remember, I'm like, Dad, I can make a living if I just continue to do this. And he goes, well, slow down, take it easy. I said, man, but we did it. We did my first world title. And he goes, hey, man, have to apologize for something. Can we sit down before we go out to dinner? I said, what do you mean apologize? Like,
uh-oh.
And I look at his face and I go, man, this is a serious talk. He doesn't do this, right? He's usually like pretty minimal with words and stuff. I'm the one that talks. Anyway, I'm the one that talks, and he's the one that doesn't talk much, and he just whatever. So he goes, hey, and he looks down for a second, and he goes, so I trained you hard, not thinking this would ever become you right now, become a world champion. I said, okay. But I said, Dad, you don't have to apologize about the way you trained me, and I knew it was hard, and it wasn't pleasurable at the time, but right now, everything that we've ever done leading up to this moment is worth it. I wouldn't change a thing. And he's like, no, that's my point. Back in the Philippines, he goes, when you started to take interest on it, I started letting you come out. It was too expensive for us to do it. So he's like, I had to make a choice after a while that you were continuing to do it, and you would train harder than I did. No matter how much I berated you or got angry or do this, you would go home and dry fire harder than I did. So I said, maybe you want it more than I do. And my dad doesn't make a lot of friends, but he had friends in the shooting industry, and that's what he loved. So that was his passion. He enjoyed it. So there was a point where he had to basically give it up so I can start to train and shoot for me and seriously, because we couldn't afford for us to do it both. So he had to quit. So I said, if I was going to quit.
It's a very expensive hobby.
It is a very expensive hobby. So it was, especially being in the Philippines. So he said, if I was going to quit, I'm going to train you harder than I would have ever trained myself. And he goes, sometimes it was a little too hard. And I was like, that's okay, Dad. I was like, you don't need to be sorry about that. But he goes, here's the crazy thing. He goes, I trained you that hard because either 2 things were going to happen. You're going to continue to win, or you're just going to get burned out and quit. And I was hoping for you to quit so I can go back in it. And I'm like, hold up a second. So we're talking about me winning the world championship now, but you were hoping for me to quit a long time ago? Kind of, because that's what I want to say. I'm sorry, because I really didn't mean for it to be this. For some reason, you never quit, because you just kept on pushing harder and harder. I didn't even have to tell you to push harder, train anything. You just kept on doing it every day. You would do it. Even if I didn't tell you, if you weren't allowed to shoot because your grades went down, you would dry fire every day. He goes, an hour, 2 hours sometimes, and I would have to stop you. I was the one pulling you away from it. And I guess you found passion in it. And then he goes, who am I? So I never got to that point where I beat my dad. Never got to that point. The last time we competed against each other in a national title, a national competition in the Philippines, he was, I think, 4th overall, and I was 6th overall. And then we won the father and son combo. So he beat me, right? So I'm 0 and whatever on him. He's undefeated against me. But he said, the way he talks about it now, he goes, you've taken shooting far beyond the levels that I've ever even can comprehend and even do. He goes, you've taken it to a different level, which is cool to hear it from them. But in my head, I'm like, he's still undefeated for me. I've never beaten him. So that's how.
You should challenge him.
I've tried to bring him back. He won't.
So you've done tons of interviews. People see you in the magazines and different media platforms. people probably always talk to you about the same stuff, I'm assuming.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. What are stuff that you don't talk about with people?
What I don't talk about a lot.
I don't mean because it's private.
No,
I just
for
mean
sure.
like, what are the things that don't come up?
It's like the outside hobbies beyond shooting, right? Sometimes there are questions that they talk about in shooting that, like, hey, no one ever asked me about that question. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like my training approach, right? Sometimes no one talks about that, and then once someone talked about it, it became like a theme. Like everyone just wanted to talk about it. It's like, hey, you mentioned this in this podcast and this and that. Biggest thing about it really is I think I went to a podcast. This was really cool. I was at North Carolina training military guys over there, and then one of the opportunities to do a podcast came about when I was training over there. It was called the Melanie Podcast, and she didn't know anything about shooting, but she knew about my name and the story of how I was an immigrant and climb up to do something in the gun industry. So she's like, hey, I want to interview you, and she asked me questions outside of everything. One of the questions that she asked me was, what are your main goals now that you've accomplished what you needed and thought you could accomplish and thought you couldn't accomplish? What are your main goals behind that now? Like, what keeps you going? And I remember it took me a minute to think to answer it, but my answer was basically, I was like, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better dad.
It's a good thing.
And I remember saying that, and I started like kind of thinking about my family, and I'm like, man, I don't ever reflect whenever I'm traveling. I live day by day, the hour by hour, right? Like, this is me right now. I can't think 3 days beyond, 4 days beyond, because that's too far in the future. My wife handles all that stuff, and she does the scheduling and stuff like that. So people always like, hey, what are you doing in this date? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm living it right now. And I guess the reason for that is because I travel so much. If I don't live the moment right now, what I'm doing the best I can, I start reflecting and looking back at what's happening at home, this and that, and I start missing home, right? And then I didn't like the way I felt as I was saying that, because I've started thinking about home and what my kids are doing, what am I missing? I wish I was there to hug them or hold them or whatever it is. And when she asked me that, I'm like, I want to be a better dad and better husband. And I said it just kind of like nonchalantly, but it made me think that night, I'm like, how do I become a better husband?
I was about to ask you, what is that? What metrics?
What does that mean?
Define,
right?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I can support my wife a little better. I'm like, I already do that. And like, what's better mean? This is so generalized, and I want it specific.
Yeah, it's kind of like I want to shoot faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be better at shooting.
Fast,
it's like, what do you mean by that? What's your weaknesses, right? So I wanted to be a little bit more verbal about the things she does. I want to compliment her a little bit more, right?
That's more specific.
Yeah, so that was the one thing that I started saying, because like she does a lot of great things that I don't say. And it's like, I assume that it happens because she's an amazing lady. And I go, you know what, that's one of the things I'm gonna start saying. And then I'm like, being a little bit more intimate with her. Like, I wanna hold her hand. I don't think I've held her hand for a very long time, because I don't like holding hands. I feel like I'm restrained, right? This is...
For the next 7 minutes.
I never liked it.
You like to hold your wife's hand?
So I've always wanted my hands free just in case. I don't know why, but it was just in case. Like paranoid liver.
Walking around with rolls of nickels in your hands everywhere.
So every time my wife would hold my hand, I would literally just put it in the back pocket with my hand and then leave her hand there and then take my hand out. So I'm like, you know what?
These need to be unleashed.
I want to hold her hand. I want to make that, right? And I remember holding her hand when I got home that first. I didn't tell her any of this. None of this. She doesn't know any of this. So if she watches this, she's probably like, no wonder he's been acting different, whatever. But like I held her hand watching a movie.
Wasn't this podcast some time ago?
No, this was this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
This was May this year. I went to Bragg, and Melanie, if she watches this, she can relate to the moment. She had asked me that question, and I'd answered it in her podcast. But it was really cool because she was not a shooter. She asked me that question, and it made me rethink about life. And like, man, my wife does all these things, and she's the reason why I basically flourish in this industry. Without her, I would have a lot of like tentative classes booked or tentative interviews booked. Right?
She seals the deals and gets the hard work
She makes it. Yeah, she makes it.
All you got to do is show up and do your little dog and pony show.
I mean,
oh, look at me.
It's not quite like that, but it is like that. I literally go to the airport, and I just know that I have to be at the airport by 9 because my flight leaves at 11.
Okay.
Got guns to check in, and when I go over there and I go, and a lot of times I do this about 50 or maybe more than 50% of the time. I get my ID and said, hey, I'm flying out at 11 o'clock. And I go, do you know where you're going? I said, no idea. And they'll tell me, like, oh, you're going to Seattle, Washington. I'm like, good, I'm glad I got grain gear. Going to Washington sounds good, so I guess I'm working there for the next 3 days. Sounds good. And she goes, all right, sounds good. And I leave, and that's how I find my schedule. But a lot of times, my wife will do the logistics, the administrative stuff, my bookings, my hotel, my rent a car, and I just show up to places, and I know things are happening. Without her, Dates would be booked wrong. Rental cars would be booked at a different place. I'd be looking at my connection flights.
Where's all that energy going? It's all into training?
Yeah. So yes.
We'll cover some of that
That's
stuff.
That's a really good question because not a lot of people ask that. No one ever talks about that.
Well, I mean, we only have a finite ball of energy that we can ladle out of all day till it's empty, right? Like you're doing something with it.
Yeah.
2006, you won that championship.
Yeah.
What year were you on that TV show?
2000.
Top Shot.
10, 11.
Okay, so it was a couple years later.
Yeah.
So you had the chops based on that to have a good presentation to be on that show.
Yes.
Wasn't just like some of the guys were like, I'm a good shooter.
Yes,
and you're like,
yes.
You watch some of these people and you're like, that guy sucks.
It was a decision of maybe I shouldn't go on the show because I already built my reputation. I've won several world championships at the time because I've won 2009, 2012, and 11, whatever it is. I won a few already going to that show. And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, if I come up on this show and I get beat by nobody, I just ruin and tarnish my reputation. But at the same time, my dad always says, like, don't be afraid to fail and lose. Like, if
and it was kind of like
hokey pokey show.
Yeah, there was some. I'm not, but it was like it wasn't raw shooting performance.
No.
There was some gamesmanship
sure.
and silly, not silly in a negative way. It was TV.
Yeah,
it was TV.
Yeah, to be entertaining, right?
Yeah, like all right at the end, like you had to like vote somebody off, and you like shoot the wooden target.
They love the drama.
And you guys were like, sorry, Tyler, you're not allowed in the house anymore, right? Dude, you fart too much.
Put it this way. That we were living in a mansion. That was a 5,000 square feet home or something like that. Put 16 people in there with all A-type personalities within an hour.
The first season?
Yeah, it was the first season.
Who else was on there with
Chris
you?
Sereno.
Okay, Chris,
Ian
good dude.
Harrison.
Okay, Ian, good dude.
Kelly. What's
that?
The
red-haired boy?
No, that's Caleb. Caleb was there. He's still in the industry. Adam. Kelly was the
Were you
junior.
on the year that Mike Hughes was on it?
No, I was in the year with Mike Seaclander was on it.
Oh.
Seaclander was on it, that's right. He was the first one kicked out. Remember that?
Was he really?
Yes. And he was the biggest
I watched
threat.
that. My son and I watched it all, and I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was the first
What did
one.
he get booted for? So that right there tells you how funny it is. A champion.
Yes, he was the biggest
shooter.
threat. Out of anyone there, he was the biggest threat. He was the most
So you're
trained.
like putting shit in his food at night.
Oh, it was hilarious watching. Just Blake Miguez was there too. Like
He was on that?
Yes, he
what
was.
What happened to him?
He's still, so he's running.
I meant on that show.
Oh, he got eliminated near the end. I think he was like top 5 or top 6. He got eliminated in one of the
Did Mike
events.
get booted just for some weird, stupid technicality?
Dude, it was so fun. It was so funny. So I don't know how much I can share the story.
Well, you can share what we saw on the TV.
What we saw on TV. So basically, I think what ultimately happened, the behind the scenes plus whatever happened on TV, Mike was trying to shoot this one target. The spotter couldn't spot the target.
Some longer range.
Yeah, it was in long range. Thinking about it, it was like 100 yards or something like that. But the guns we were shooting had offsets. Like we were just Kentucky windaging it, right?
On purpose, there was some weird offset.
They
force you to have to.
Yeah, because the day before you get to shoot like 5 rounds. And they're like, man, I'm shooting high left on this particular gun, so I got to aim about 6 inches or a foot low right to hit this target. And then that's like a 25 yards. And then they put the target at 100, and you're like, well, what's my? How do I Kentucky windage?
Just created a stupid gun
challenge
sight combination that nobody'd ever used.
And a lot of it was basically the ability to adapt, right? And then with the help of a spotter, you should be able to walk rounds in. The problem was, I think initially the first 15 rounds or 20 rounds that Mike had shot and fired, I think Andre was spotting the wrong target.
Oh no.
And he saw like something and he goes, and it was like, hey, you're over way to the right. And Mike goes, I'm way to the right. He goes, I'm aiming left of the target. He goes, yeah. He goes, so you need to go way more to left. So Mike's aiming at this target that's to the right of what Andre was spotting and saw a hit here. So Mike's trying to aim further.
He got hosed.
And he goes, yep, just a little high. And he goes, and then it disappears because it's brushing around it and it just couldn't hit. And he was like 37 rounds into it and never hit a freaking damn thing. And
Marine Corps way, right?
Yes.
Some of you are going to write some bad messages. I know, Mike, it's just a joke.
Yeah, Seaclander's a good dude. So anyway, he ended up getting booted out. Not necessarily, but he got voted in, and they were like, who do we vote against him? Right? Because no one else was involved. Mike, that was a team challenge. Our team went through fine. His team, he was the only one that ever got to shoot, him and Andre, right? And so every one of us were like, hey, vote Andre. Like, he was the only one. He spotted the wrong target. That was his fault. That was not all your fault. He didn't spot you correctly, so vote Andre. And so Mike went to go think about it and goes, yeah, I'm going to vote Andre. And the producers were like, listen, first gun show ever in History Channel, and we're going to vote out the only black man that ever made it to this show. Like, no, you can't vote him in. Like, you cannot vote him in. Because we knew if Mike went against Andre would have gotten smoked. So Mike was like, well, he was the only one involved. And they were like, nope, pick another person. That's not going to happen. So that was like the politics behind the scene. Yeah, right? So,
so Mike, back there keeping your head down, probably.
So yeah, we were like, well, we can't say anything, right? So Mike goes on and goes, you know what? Instead of voting anyone else, I'm going to vote the toughest competition in the long range game it is, and that was Kelly Bashad. Yeah, and Kelly Bashad is at that time was like they called him the prodigy in iron sights shooting. He can read wind really, really well, and I think to this day he's now one of the Olympic coaches. He's done really well for himself in the industry. So iron sights, long range, that's his specialty, reading wind and all that stuff. So Mike was like, you know what? That's going to be the elimination. I'm going to vote Kelly. And everyone was like, why would you do that? Like, that's an automatic seal at home. Mike's like, yeah, but if I want to earn my spot back on the team, this is how I'm going to weigh in. So I'm like, oof, brave choice, Mike. I get what you're doing, but this is for $100,000. So we're fighting for over here. Sure enough, didn't work out well for Mike. The kid crushed it. If you look at it,
I think I remember this now that you're saying it.
He was making calls before Pete, his spotter, was making the adjustment on the target. Kelly was making those calls before Pete could even read, and Pete was like, "Well, that was really impressive. Before I can even see vapor trail or impact, Kelly was already making an adjustment and shooting it." Yeah,
that's awesome.
Wow, and Mike just got smoked.
So, did that being on that show have much of an effect on your career?
Yes and no.
I mean, I personally maybe saw you in some magazine articles before then, but I didn't like.
Yeah, it was good and bad. I think it was easier to introduce myself to companies, and there was a lot of companies.
Remember me from that TV show?
You know, I don't say that, but I'm like, hey, I'm JJ Racaza. I'm looking for some work, right? And then they're like, oh, yeah, you were on a TV show, and then they always go, you were good. You represented well on that TV show. You were very well spoken, and you were very respectful. I'm like, well, that's cool. I wasn't an asshole. Like, you could easily be portrayed however they want you to be portrayed, and that made it easy. And then having a little bit of notoriety, then we had like 3 million viewers during that show per episode.
There was a History Channel, right?
Yeah. And so going to an NRA show, it allowed for my sponsors to see the value in me, because then there would be a line of people wanting to meet me, or randomly when we're walking around, people want to take pictures, and it always weirded me out to do that. And I'm like, what's this for? Is this for USPSA? Is this for my shooting, or is this for the TV show? I don't know. But a lot of times it was for the TV show. And then I also realized what my demographic was, or what History Channel's demographic was. It's not like the MTV crowd. It's like the old grandma, grandpa, dad, and moms, right? Like, those were and at that time I was like 30 years old, and there were people coming up to me like, hey man, good job shooting,
that's
kid.
Funny.
Right? And then I'm like, man, we're all like the young kids. Like, that's what I want to, get respect from. But it's kind of cool. It's really weird, because now, fast forward, I have kids. A couple of my kids' friends realize what I do, and they're like, hey, your dad's famous, because your dad's the world champ. I saw him on TV, and then we saw him on History Channel. My dad made me watch that, and he goes, that's your dad? He goes, can I meet him? And my kids are like, why do you want to meet him? And finally, so one day we played the show. My kids were like, Dad, you're on TV? And they were all so ecstatic about it. They thought I was cooler than ever. So that's why it was cool. So I have the DVD that we can play anytime. Or I think it's still on Amazon. You can order it and watch it.
It's up there.
Yeah.
Did all of that happen before or after your time in the Air Marshal Service?
That was within. I was well within it. Yeah, I've been in Air Marshal since 2006. And that happened around 2010-11. And that was a very hard one, because I had to take not administrative leave. I had to take my own personal annual leave to be able to get on that show. And they didn't tell you how long you were going to be there. They said maybe it's going to be a month of filming. And since I made it all throughout, I burned out I was depleted on my annual leave. And I had enough to just make it enough to the show. And when I got back, they didn't want to show support. They didn't want to put administrative leave on it. A couple of reasons being, like, the one was they needed bodies on flight, and we were doing some sort of augmentation going on at the time with other agencies, and we're working with that. And then at the second time, they were like, it would look bad for us to support you, sending you into this TV show, just kind of do whatever, mess around. And I'm like, okay. So when I was in it, I couldn't even say who I worked for specifically, because no one was supposed to know. I could blandly just say I work for Department of Homeland Security. So for a long time, that's what I just became, a Department of Homeland Security guy.
Did you work in other law enforcement?
No. I work in regards to training, that's it.
So you never worked for like a city police department and then went to federal or anything like that?
No, sir.
Were you always an air marshal or did you do other things?
I did contracting right after 9/11 happened. Got recruited to a contract, did that for a little bit, and that was my getting my feet wet on the door in regards to instructing. I never really taught before that, officially, at least in an official capacity. Got the training and started understanding lesson plans, EPOs, TPOs, and understanding like how to break down a certain specific movement, how accreditation work, and how the academy works versus how a contract works, how to teach a big group of people, how line instructors versus tower versus safety officers, right? Like everyone had a role, and like all this structure allowed me to be able to understand like how do what I do now. Like when I teach on the line, I'm like, I know I can run 5 guys at a time. That I can keep safe on those. I know the safe angles. Like it's cool to have those experiences because without that, it'd be basically winging it. And I don't want to, trial and error on the range. It's kind of a shitty way to do it than do things.
Sure. In all of that time, did you see things that you're like, I'm never gonna freaking teach that stuff, or definitely when I'm on my own someday, I'm not going to pass that crap on? Was there anything like that?
There were definitely some hokey stuff that we did, like certain drills. One of the drills that was always the coolest drill, and then all our feedback in the beginning was called a rolling thunder. And I swear to you, I thought it was the biggest.
This was an air marshal drill?
Yeah. No, it wasn't an air marshal drill. It was a contractor drill. Like we would do it for almost each class. It was just a big waste of like round, and it was just like the hoorah type thing. So we would do a 6-round rhythm drill at about 7 yards. You punch out, fire 6, and there'll be an instructor. There'll be a line of guys, about 45. You would tap 1, he punches out, fires 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time his 4th shot, you tap the next guy.
So you're walking the line.
Yes, and you're not checking nonsense. They're just shooting, and you're just tapping the guys, and they're
standing there ready to go.
Yeah, you're like, wait, put me in, coach, my turn to tap. There it is. And they're just racking the freaking target stands and everything but the target, right? Some of them are actually doing the right thing, right? But most of them are just going bah, 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 and shooting as much. Now they can let loose and no one's caring for anything. But that was like the last drill, and I'm like, I would never.
Freaking awesome.
Everyone loved it. Feedback, we loved the thunder, rolling thunder, and everyone, like the big bosses were like, what's the rolling thunder? One day they saw it and they were like,
it's a waste of 480 rounds.
It was a whole lot, because we would get them to do, I think, almost at one point, if not all 36 rounds on their body per person. Right, so it's like
doing slide lock loads,
six, yeah, and they're doing reload, and they're having their hoorah, yeah.
Whose idea was this?
I don't know whose idea that was.
What was the purpose? What was the?
I think a lot of it was more a morale thing.
Okay.
That's just because it was like the last thing they did before the challenges, before the shoot-offs, and then during that time when you were contracting, there was a lot of times where instructors get called out. Like, hey, Mr. So-and-so, you were my teacher all week. I won Top Gun. I'd like to call you out. And now we get to shoot in front of the students and cadre. Now your instructor credibility is on the line. And there were so many guys that wouldn't show up to that because they knew they couldn't outrun some of the students. Yeah, so Mike Seekelander was there. I would always show up, and we were always the guys that would show up and go, all right, JJ, I want to shoot against you. Sounds good. And I always got challenged because and this is the craziest thing, because in the beginning of my career in teaching, law enforcement, military, there was a lot of almost frowned upon to do a lot of competition. Like you get killed in the streets and stuff like that. Whatever you do, it doesn't apply to.
That's one of those weird kind of
weird, right? There's a mix there somewhere in between. And then now later in future, and fast forward 20 years later, I'm seeing that there's a lot. Obviously, I'm getting hired for some of these specific things that I do in competition, but I teach it, and then they apply the tactical side of it, and they go, there's a lot of benefit to shooting efficiently, right? Performing well behind a gun will allow you to have an expandable bandwidth that you can process the scenario better, as opposed to just worrying about what you need to do with the gun and all that stuff. So anyway, we're going back to like the contracting world. They would literally call you out and say, hey, JJ, you don't do any tactical stuff. Let's shoot against me. And it's just steel. I'm like, I just crush steel all day. I was like, you're going to shoot against me? I'm like, all right, sounds good. And we would shoot whatever gun they chose, whether a Glock, SIG 229, or M9s, or whatever it is, the Berettas that they had out there. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot the 229. This is the agency. We're going, all right, holster it up, load it up, and we'd run it. And it would be almost hilarious, because there would be about 20 pieces of steel. I'd be done, and I'd be about halfway done. And then, all right, I was like, pick a partner. And then there'll be 2 of you guys and shoot against me and see if I can beat you 2. And I would shoot against two of them and then one. And I'm like, pick another guy because that was too easy. And it would just become like a comedic thing. So that was.
You'd have three guys.
I would have three guys shooting 20 plates, or they would divide it to like 6 or 7. And I knew if I can get them to shoot more than 5 plates, it would be a struggle for them to continually hit it. And if I can just clean my
They'd
plates.
start missing,
Yes.
trying to make up misses.
Yeah, and there was a lot of mental games. Now, like, oh, they have to plan it out, right? So it wasn't as easy. Sometimes you got colluded. They'd be shooting at the same plate, right? They didn't plan it out correctly. So there wasn't always an advantage to have
I've
more
seen
people.
a couple videos of you doing these insulting, show-offy.
None of those ever made videos.
No, there's some videos of you on the line doing some shit like that.
No shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were from that particular thing, but there's some videos of you
Probably
doing
grainy videos.
I mean, it's just like more or less you smoking some dude
yes,
in
shoot-offs, yes.
some kind of shoot-offs like that, where you can tell that it's a more mortal person against you, and then you're holster up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some videos out there. And you know, it's funny, I look back on those days, right? Like the contracting days. I'm like, I learned so much, right? I learned how to run a class. I learned how to do tactics and understand what the purposes are, what the difference is. Me as a competition, sole competition purpose of my life was shoot competition. All of a sudden I got thrown in this tactical world. And then now we're teaching shoot houses, live fire shoot houses. And you know, you have to identify knowns versus unknowns. And I'm looking at these role players and we're talking, get it? Did you get it?
I don't know. I felt like
give me chopsticks, I'll get it.
Give him. That's racist.
So, hey, I can make fun of whoever I can in my culture.
Filipinos use chopsticks?
No, these are chopsticks.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny. My wife makes fun of me because she's like, "Hey," she goes, "How come you don't know how to use chopsticks?" I'm like, "We weren't rich enough to go to the fancy Chinese restaurants in the
We use
Philippines.
forks.
So we use my hands."
You guys just ate with your hands?
Yeah, we dug with our hands. That was how Filipinos ate. And then so when my dad and I were both struggling chopsticks. We don't know. Like, so when we got here, like Japanese people, sushi, we're like, can we get knife and fork? And it's funny because my wife is Irish Italian. So every time we go to a Korean restaurant or a Japanese restaurant, they have chopsticks coming in. And I need fork to eat because I want to eat fast and I want to eat a lot. So I always go, hey, can I get fork, please? And I always point at my wife. And then he dropped all the forks in front of her, and she's fluent with chopstick. And she goes, I don't need that. Why are they? Because I'm the white girl on this group? Like, is that why? And I'm like, yeah, that's why. And I grab the freaking fork. I'm like, no, this is really for me. 2 forks. That's what I do, double fisted.
That might be the title of this podcast. I like to eat a lot, and I like to eat fast.
100%.
Who says that?
Because you have 20
I like
minutes.
to eat a lot, and I like to eat fast.
You have 20 minutes to eat as much as you can before your body registers that it's full.
So you're trying to trick yourself?
Yes, to eating more calories than I'm supposed to.
Because you're a glutton, or because you just want to eat and you need the fuel?
Two reasons. In the Philippines, we never had that opportunity to eat as much as we can. So when we lived in the U.S., things were afforded to us.
You're not there anymore. You're fine.
That's what I'm saying. So I still live that life like, oh, I might not be able to eat tomorrow, so I'm going to eat as much as I can. Second, my metabolism is so fast that I've always wanted to gain weight. Let me try to eat as much as I can. That's one way of eating as much as you can, is eating as fast as you can.
How old were you when you left there?
13 years old.
I've known different Filipinos. You don't sound like you have any
I have.
dialect. There's no Filipino coming out of your mouth.
You know what's crazy? I don't know how that happened. I had a heavy accent.
Did you?
Oh, heavy. I barely spoke English when I came here. Barely spoke English.
Yeah, I mean, you sound like a kid from like SoCal or something.
So yeah, I think a lot of it was the opportunity to travel early in my career as a shooter. I had struggled to communicate a little bit, right, through middle school and high school. High school started getting better. College was okay, but starting high school, later part of my high school years, I started to shoot again, and I would travel a little bit. And then when I got recruited to go to AMU in Fort Benning to try to jump in on that team, I would get exposed to different accents.
Were you in the Army?
Mm-mm.
So they brought you in, and you were on the Army marksmanship unit?
So they brought me in to bring me in as part of the Army, one of the Army guys, as the AMU guys, just to represent the AMU unit, Army marksmanship unit.
In that position, weren't you in the Army?
Yes, you're supposed to be in the Army, but I never did. So I got recruited. But then here's the problem. 9/11 happened, and then I got recruited to a contracting that paid $750 a day. So I was like, oh, I'm going to postpone because I was supposed to go to the AMU right after college because I wanted to make sure I get my degree, and I wanted to be Max Michel's boss, and I wanted to be equal with Julie Golowski.
You wanted to be Max Michel's boss?
Yes, because Julie Golowski, Julie Golov nowadays, she's all these guys are good friends of mine, right? We grew up together in the shooting industry, and they've made their own names in their like world. Julie's with Smith & Wesson, Max is with SIG, and won their own respective world championships and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, like when I went in there to get recruited, I remember seeing the format. I'm like, why is Julie doing this kind of work and you guys got to do all this? Like, oh, because Julie's an officer, she's our boss, and she gets to tell us what to do. I'm like, screw that, I don't want to work for Julie. I was like, how do you get that? She goes, you just have to finish your degree and you can come and work for us, and then you become an officer. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. I was like, I want to become an officer, I want to get my degree. So I finished my degree, but finishing my degree meant 2002 is when I graduated from college. 2001 was 9/11 happened, and
How old were you?
I was 22 years old.
Okay, so just a young man.
Young man, didn't know anything about life, right? And so when I started, got recruited and teaching, I failed and flattened my face. Like, I tell this story to my class, but I haven't really told it to any podcast.
You say this when you're out on the line teaching?
Yes, this is my first time ever teaching, right? Like,
Go back a second just so I understand. The story you're about to tell, you tell at every class?
No, I tell it to a class here or there because sometimes it'll come up like, hey, I wasn't such a good shooter. I wasn't always a good communicator in my skill sets or tactics or training or whatever it is. But here's how I started. And it's always, I have like failure stories, and it allowed for me to flourish, right? So I share the funny stories. And this is one of those things where I think I was standing in front of a group of highly, highly trained individuals. And they said, hey, Jay, you're a really good fast shooter. We want you to train. I talk about the RICO management part because we're going to do some speed shooting after this. We're going to force them to run the gun and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, sounds good. I can do that. And then they gave me a book. Said, study this. This is the lesson plan for.
These are soldiers?
Yes.
Okay.
So I looked at it. I was like, all right. So I looked at the lesson plan. I'm like, what is all this nonsense? It's like, just grip the gun, talk about thumbs forward grip. And I'm like, that's what I do. Pulling the trigger, and they have like this banana thing looking like a trigger, and they had like the drawings and diagrams and EPOs and TPOs. I'm like, I care less about that. I was like, what's the goal here? What's the drill? So I looked at the drill. We got 7 yards, and the goal is to shoot 6 rounds in under 3 seconds. I don't need this lesson plan.
Sure.
Went and did the whole EDIP method, explain, demonstrate, imitate, and practice. So I was like, all right, guys, I'm going to explain the drill. The drill's what we're going to do is we're going to draw and fire 6 rounds into the center part of this target, center ring. And I'm going to do it in under 3 seconds. All right, so it looks something like this. Beep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We were under from concealment, posted up, check my 60, whatever. All right, guys, it's time for you guys to imitate. Everyone's like, wait, what? We're doing it right now? Like, yeah, I want to see how you guys run it before I run my class.
Just see what you're up to, get a baseline.
Blah, 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 blah. And some of them were shot too fast because most of these guys never been put any under time. And some of them are really competent shooters, but now you put a time there, 3 seconds seems, to us, to me, you, like we know, understand time. It's a long time. Yeah. But to some guys, like, well, 3 seconds, that's a very short time. Like 1, 2, 3, we're done. So they're like 1, 2, 3, and they're just running. I'm like, whoa, not the whole target. Like right here, guys. And everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, all right, so how do we do that? I'm like, watch me. Beep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, everything's like right here. Is that good? Everyone's like, how did you do that? I'm like, just hold your freaking gun, watch your sights. All right, go back, everyone, line, beep, da, 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 da. I'm like, do you see, what'd you see? What do you mean, what did I see? Did you use your sights? I don't even think I saw my sights. There's no time. I'm like, well, there is a lot of freaking time. Look, guys, just watch this. Again, I did this, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And the third time, I get a tap on my shoulder. It's like, hey, man, Al wants to talk to you in the tower. What? I'm in the middle of a class. He's like, yeah, Al wants to, I'll take over. And Kelly Venden's, no, it wasn't Kelly Venden. It was Dave Lane, Dave something, Dave, I don't know, but he was a Ranger guy. He was in Big Brother also. He was also on TV shows, hilarious. But anyway, he comes in, he's like, I'll take care of the class. I run to the tower, and I get a yellow flag. I'm like, what's this yellow card? And I said, hey, Jay, he goes, you just wasted everyone's time. You didn't teach shit. It's really embarrassing. We don't want our company to be represented that way. You get another one of these, you're getting kicked out, and you get your last paycheck. And I said, so what did I do? Like, can anyone explain me? He goes, at this point, you're just going to shadow this and this. Jose, you're going to shadow this guy, you're going to shadow this guy. You don't teach, you don't say a word for this entire class. Your job is to demo the movement, whatever anyone needs you to do. Pick up targets. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to lose this job. This job is like $750 a day, right? At 22 years old, this is good money.
Yeah, you're making lots of money.
Right, so I'm like, what the heck's going on? So I went out there and they said, just watch. And I watched him break down everything. He's like, I want you to break down the draw, slam it in, meet and greet, present. And then at this point, I'm picking up the sights and pulling the trigger. I'm like, they should know all this. These guys are special forces. I'm like, they should know all of that. I'm like, why would they have to teach it? And I'm fighting it. And then Andy Anderson, I'll never forget his name, he's an older gentleman, Vietnam vet, SF guy too, just sour as hell. He looks at me and he goes, you learn to shut your mouth a little bit and open your ears up. He goes, that will do you really good. And he walks away and I'm like, I don't like a lot of these people. they're hurting my feelings. I'm one of the best shooters here.
I don't like a lot of these
I don't
people.
like a lot of these jackasses. I got a yellow card and this guy's telling me to shut my mouth. And so I just sat there and just said, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. Right? I just watch people teach, and then I got slowly mentored and then worked with this guy, Wayne Holu, this guy, Mario, this guy, he's the head of DEA or something now, director of DEA, whatever he is. It's like these guys went and did their own thing. And I'm like, man, watch them shoot and demonstrate and then teach a class in front of a classroom of 40, 50, 60 guys, lesson plan, keeping them entertained. And I'm just there, the freaking monkey, doing like draws and reloads and trying to show guys like how fast looks like. And I'm like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this to be my life. I was like, so after that class, I said, hey, how can I get back into teaching? And they said, you're going to teach all of us in every single lesson plan. I'm like, all of you guys. And they're like, are you ready? I'm like, no. And I said, well, here's the lesson plan. Study it and teach us the way we want you to teach the next class. And we had like a week off. And I just sat there and taught every lesson plan to every single guys. And they, instead of berating me, they're like, hey, stop real quick. Can you say that again? This is what we want you to say. Instead of this, can you try to say it in your own verbiage? Don't try to copy what he said, because what he said works for him, but you don't deliver it correctly. And I'm like, delivery? Is like, what is delivery? I'm like, no, like you got to communicate it your way. Well, how do you say it? And I'm like, this is how I would say it. We'll say it like that, and then we'll see if we can understand it. Pick your words. Don't use our words. And I'm like, because our words, military, you're civilian, use that. And I was trying to talk like, when you check 6 and look at Charlie over there, or look at this tango, and everyone was like, no, just whatever you think, use your words. And I'm like, well, when I look at this threat, I'm going to identify him as a threat. And they're like, that's a good thing. Threat is a good thing. Don't do tango, don't do bravo, none of that. That's not you. And I'm like, oh, and they were like, they let me be me, and they freaking mentored me, and they did it right. And then after that, man, I could stand, and then it was like really nerve-wracking to stand in front of a legit class with all the bosses in the back and start teaching. And I remember getting a praise like, hey, that was a really good class. You probably can tear yourself apart, but that was a really good class.
So that just took you 10 minutes to share that very cool story. Why would you tell that to dudes at a shooting class? I'm just wondering.
Oh, because it's funny.
So you just use it as like an icebreaker?
Yeah, kind of like an icebreaker.
So
like,
hey,
hey,
guys show up and is everybody like licking on your crack? Yeah, and they're like, it's JJ.
Like,
so
no,
you're like,
dude.
So this is your way to humanize yourself a little bit?
Yeah.
Like
I don't go through that depth. I just go, this is the way my first class taught. I said, shoot this, look at me, that's the result. Not like that, not this, look at me, do this, not like that. And that's how I break the ice a little bit.
There's plenty of people that are good at all kinds of things that can't teach it.
Sure.
Music,
I was one
art.
Of them.
Yeah. And it is something that you got to work at too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And since then, I got addicted. Never looked back. It's been training. I've been teaching since.
Was that about 20 years?
Yeah, 20 plus years. Now 21 years. 21 years.
What did you go to school for?
See, I went to school for computer business management, information systems. So I was a computer guy, networking, programming, C++, Java, SQL, like database stuff. Like that was my thing, my jam. Software, hardware, loved it. And then business management was just, I knew I wanted to get in some sort of business later on. And then I ended up running my own business, which is what we do now. But I don't run it anyway. My wife runs it. She's my boss. So useless, 150,000.
And you love to hold her hands.
I do. Yes, I do. I like to caress her hair a little bit and let her know. And she looks at me like, because she's a tough chick. I will like, she goes, what the hell are you freaking doing? Just trying new things. I don't know.
You've talked about your dad a little bit.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cool cat.
Definitely a cool guy.
Besides your pop, what male individuals alive or in history did you look up to as a younger dude?
Rob Latham.
Robbie.
Yeah, Jeremy Ty, I really likes him too. He's a good friend of mine as well. But Rob Latham was one of the guys that I really looked up to, because he was the guy that I saw a 30-second clip of video commercial and a VHS. And I remember seeing that as a kid going, man, they put him on TV. that means he knows what he's doing. So I'm gonna study the way he draws the gun, not the way my dad does it. I'm gonna watch this guy because they put him on TV and it looks like he can hit stuff. And he had
my dad ain't on TV, but this guy
is right. And he's shooting, and he's shooting tracer rounds into these poppers. I'm like, man, he's hitting every single one of them. He's doing it fast. I was like, I want to look like that. So I would watch that 30-second clip, rewind it. You know, like the VCR, VHS, they would used to get eaten up. You have to take it apart and wind it in, play it again, all that stuff. So I did that over and over until I got to meet him. And when I got to meet him, I'd ask him certain questions, and he would kind of be weirded out at first because they didn't know me. And then I got squatted in the super squad with him. And then throughout the years, we developed that relationship where I would constantly ask him questions like, hey, how do you do this? But he was a guy that was always open to kind of eluding me to a path, but never necessarily telling me the answer. So till this day, he does the same thing. Like, I'm like, hey, how do I make this better? He goes, your rhythm's a little off, and I want you to figure out what that means. And I'm like, what does that mean, rhythm's a little off? And I'm like, he goes, no. He goes, this particular area, dude, listen to the way this guy will shoot it, and just, there was no video at the time, just pay attention to the way you remember yourself shooting it. And I'd listen to someone shoot, and I'm like, that did sound different. Like, well, what was different about that? What makes that better versus mine? Like, I think we executed it correctly, but his time seems to be faster. And then, so he would just be like, figure it out. And then I'm like, what? And then I'm like, how are you able to hit that 50-yard target consistently 6 rounds in the alpha, or maybe 1 or 2 in the Charlie? And I'm like, it looks like you're just slapping the trigger. He's like, nope, it is a lot about the trigger, but it's not me slapping the trigger. He goes, I want you to think about that. He goes, I'm like, and it's questions like, how do I shoot fast accurately? He's like, learn to shoot one shot really fast accurately, then you can learn how to do multiple shots fast accurately. And I'm like, that's not the answer I'm looking for. Like, how do I do it? Give me a drill. He's like, no, you'll figure that out. And that's kind of like the mentorship that he goes. And later on in our career, 7 years ago, he finally told me, he goes, the more I tell you, the less I teach you. So he goes, that's why I've never really told you. I want you to dig for your own thing, because that will help you grow as a teacher as well, to understand the process of what it took you to get to your level and make yourself an improvement. And you'll do it wrong a couple times. It's a really long process, but if you trust it, he goes, like, I trust you that you were not going to give up until you found the answer. He goes, you're gonna get to where you got today. And I'm like, damn, that's the most nicest things you've ever said to me. And it was literally in passing a shot show. It was like, NRA show, that's when we get to hang out and talk. So I was like, that's really cool. He's like, yeah. He goes, that's why I don't like to teach you as much as I can. I just want to give you certain tidbits and let you run wild, because I think you might take it more and further than I might imagine it. He goes, because my information is old. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So Rob Latham will be one of those other guys. Jerry Barnhart used to be as well, but Jerry Barnhart kind of disappeared and went into just training the specialized units and stuff like that. And now those two really are my big mentors and stuff. I have one in the Philippines as well.
Go ahead.
Jerry Soon, he's the guy that changed my shooting. I used to shoot with locked elbows. He was the first guy that said, bend your elbows back, let the absorb recoil. He was the guy that changed the way I shot, and I used to style the way he moved through field courses, the way he used to run and gun. And then Jethro Janicio also, he's a Filipino. Everyone, like, as a Filipino, he was like the hero that won world championships here in the U.S. So I would also study his videos, watching him. Like, I remember him walking through the door the first time. I thought there was like an orange glow around him, but it was just me making it up, because I just thought he was someone that was not supposed to be in the same room as me, because he's won world championships and stuff like that.
It's interesting. I've interviewed other guys like my friend Jack Carr, who...
That's a good friend to have.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And there's a funny story about him, which I don't need to tell here, but I knew him before he was famous. So it's cool when somebody, people are like, oh, how do you know that guy? Well, I knew that guy when he had a fucking 5 o'clock shadow and was, you know, like telling me he's writing a book, and I'd make fun of him because another Navy SEAL writing a book. But my point was, him and other guys, like, I mentioned him because he just recently said it when I was with him. I never thought I couldn't do these things. Like, it wasn't like on the way here today, I passed a row of supercars. Like, there was a McLaren on 44, a Ferrari, there was some Hennessy Cadillac, custom-built Cadillac with, a gazillion horsepower. And it's natural, I think, for people to see those and be like, wow, that's so cool. Like, those guys get those. I could never have one. And Jack's point was, I never would see things like that and think it was beyond me. And there's a lot of guys like Travis Tomasi. Travis really told me, he told me once, like, that he could, like, see and taste the trophy or the medal or the plaque of winning until he did. And were just talking about Robert Vogel the other day.
Yeah.
And he said something like that. You said the opposite. Like you couldn't see yourself, like I don't belong in this room with that guy.
Yeah.
And I guess part of that's like, like good old boy humble kind of a thing. Is that part of it?
I think a lot of it was because my career started in the Philippines and we were so far-fetched from it that it didn't seem to be a reality. Like, no way.
Like America's so far away?
Too far away. Yeah, like no way. And then when it started to happen and it got close a couple times, it was like, oh, that was lucky, but I didn't win it because of course I'm not going to win it. Like, that's not me. Like, when I first won my national title, like U.S. national title, the first words out of my mouth in a microphone in front of a big crowd was, "This is what it looks like." And I said, "Oh, this is on." And I remember everyone just kind of laughed because I'm like, holy cow, this is it. Like, I'm winning it. And I go, this doesn't make any dang sense. Like, this shouldn't have happened. And then once you win one, it's kind of one of those that you start believing it. People, a lot of times, I say that too, that people, a lot of times, people say, I've dreamt of this moment in my life, never got to dream about it until I won it. When I won it, I was like, wow, I can repeat that over and over. And I've won several since.
So now you had a model in front of you.
It's kind of one of those, like, I knew what it feels like, so I could repeat it, right? So I'm like, I just got to do that, and I know what I can. Now I can feel like, and taste and understand what people were saying, that I can dream and all this stuff. Like, I'll have several of those dreams nowadays, but before then, never. I think it was just, I couldn't even imagine myself winning it. And every time I've won a significant something, it was always like, wow, like, this is what it looks like. Cool. For a while, I was just content at being top 3. I'm like, I'm happy with this because I'm in the podium standing and watching this, but I don't get to be the guy to hold the mic to say thank you to his sponsors. And I'm like, well, that would be cool one day, right? Like, that would be cool, but then it's like, I don't know if I can see myself.
So what drove you if it wasn't to win?
The love for the sport, mainly.
Really? You just loved training?
Love the aspect of me getting better little by little, yeah.
So it was really just the chase of improvement, some metric or quantifiable improvement?
Whether it's quantifiable or not, yeah. It was somewhat I could feel.
You could feel, I'm better at this. I shot that farther away, faster, or whatever the metric or defining quantifier was.
And that's crazy because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? With my wife handling everything else and letting me be me. People always ask me, like, hey, when
you
you
sound kind of spoiled, by the way.
Oh, tell me. So it's like, so people always say, hey, when are you going to come up with your own online content? You cover a lot of stuff. The way I teach my classes is very scientific and stuff like that. This needs to be written in books. I've had authors, I've had publishers ask me, like, we'll run this for you, we'll write a book for you, and this and that. And I'm online stuff, online coaching and mentoring. I have a few guys that I mentor and stuff like that, but I don't do any of that because the sole purpose for me right now is still very selfish and spoiled, that I want to do things for me.
I was only joking, but
it's 100%. That's true. Like, I
wasn't joking.
Everything is like for me. Like, I want to be in really good shape because when I compete, I don't want that to be an excuse. Or if the other thing is, if I ever do have to protect my family or use my hands for whatever and fight, I would hate for the excuse for my ass to get my ass beat or get robbed, to do whatever because I got tired. Like, I don't ever want that to happen. Like, I set up something I can control. So anyway, that's one of the aspects. And in training, it's like, I just want to be the best me for now so I can win all these titles while I can.
When does for now become enough? Like, do you think the way that your brain's wired that one day you'll sit down and pour some coffee or whatever freaking green drink you're sipping on with bone broth and collagen in it, and you're gonna be like, okay, I'm good?
I don't know. I look at Rob Latham. The boy's still chugging. Look at Jerry Miculek. They're still chugging right now. And
I'm
my
not
wife
talking
asked
about
me,
those guys.
Yeah, no, but my wife asked me, she goes, are you gonna retire? You gonna slow down? No.
Well, you're a young man too.
Yeah, still young, still kicking.
Yeah, you're a young dude.
Yeah.
I think you're full of shit a little bit though. I think you want to look this way. I've seen videos of you for no good goddamn reason jumping up on
pull-up bar?
That, or like the one
ledge.
The one you jumped into, that I think it was a loading dock.
Oh my God.
You did it was like a 5-foot hop, which we should go outside and try that. I challenge you to some jumps. Maybe those shooting tables out there. Can you jump over one of those?
I might be able to, but we're not doing that anymore.
Why?
So
why? That
whole story, man. I'll never forget. Dom Spencer and all these guys.
You guys just heard it here. He's a coward. He's not going to even try
it. I come out. I was loading targets. I come out and they're like, "Hey, Spencer just jumped this." So I looked at it. I said, "God dang."
Is that loading dock?
Yeah.
Okay.
and Spencer's up top. So I jump down
This
and I
is
go,
a semi-truck loading dock.
yeah, and it's like,
Yeah, you're 5'11",
sternum.
right?
And I'm 5'11". I go, that's a pretty stout jump. So I was like, I should be able to do this. If he can do it, I should be able to do this. I can jump pretty high. I can throw my knees pretty high up too. So I was like, yeah, let's try it. So I went to go wind up. I go 1, 2, and I jump both feet, launched, and I went midway, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not gonna make it. I'm like, I gotta shove my knees as high as I can, shove my knees high, barely cleared it. Like in the video, it's like within half inches, right?
Yeah.
Boom, if not, my shins would have been gone. It's just like, I still got scars right now from the other training. So anyway, made it, and everyone's like, holy smokes, I thought you weren't gonna make it. And Spencer goes, when I jumped it, I didn't jump it like that. And
He
I'm like,
took off running.
He took off running and threw like 1 foot up in the air and like reached up, and I go, oh, I thought you were talking about box jump. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I took like 2 winding steps and I jumped both feet in the air.
That's
And I
awesome.
was like, well, my dad saw that video and flipped the hell out because we had like
Like if you got hurt.
If I got hurt, yeah. And obviously, the older you get, the smarter you become. Like, now I have bigger responsibilities with sponsors. I gotta make sure my name's good, so I don't try to do anything foolish. I still train hard, but mid-season, like I don't do as much jiu-jitsu. I do striking, sparring maybe, light sparring, but nothing to do with possibly hurting any of the
your
fingers.
hands or-
The hands really is what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
But like I just sliced my hand the other day, slicing tomatoes for my wife cooking breakfast. So guess what? She didn't get sliced tomatoes the rest of the week.
Is this how you slice tomatoes? This might be the problem. Any chefs out there, send an email to training@carrytrainer.com.
You're supposed to cut away, no?
And I will get you in touch with JJ to show
Are
him
you
some
supposed
knife
to?
skills.
No, I don't.
We'll work on it.
I need some help.
What scares you?
Ghosts.
Ghosts.
Yes.
Literally
Yes,
ghosts, like
ghosts.
fucking
Yes.
ghosts in the corner.
Because I can't hit it, I can't shoot it. It'll come in my body and make me do weird shit. If it happens ever.
I interviewed
Ghost.
Boss Rutan a couple months ago. Boss completely 100% believes in ghosts and spirits, and you could check out that podcast if you wanted to. Like, really? Ghosts scare you?
Yes, spirits. Spirits in general. Not necessarily ghost spirits. I'm not afraid of like good
So
spirits.
like we're out here in the sticks right now. Like if it got dark, this wind,
Oh, you
and we
turn
shut
this
the
off, this
lights
light?
off and
Yeah.
stuff.
You'll see me.
And he started telling a story about every
Yeah.
once in a while there was a farmer that died in a tornado,
I
and
can
from
tell
time
you
to time
stories,
he still.
me. Yeah, I
that
get
would freak you
goosebumps.
out?
Yeah, I can
Really?
tell you certain stories that will probably burn me up so much inside.
There's
that
an
my
old
eyes will start
cemetery
to-
down the road. Can we go down there tonight in the total darkness and take the cameras? We'll take the GoPro and look for ghosts.
No.
You know what's so crazy? Look behind you. Look up.
What the fuck was that?
Up on the
What the
mantle.
shit is going? What was that?
Up on the mantle is a little scenter machine that every freaking 20 minutes blows a puff of scented mist.
I just look at this goosebump.
That's hilarious. And just randomly, God dang, I wish we had that on a
Holy
remote
smokes.
control.
I got goosebumps.
I wish we had that on a remote
I
control.
saw the mist and I was like, no shit, it's fucking getting real. I'm about to leave this place. Interview fucking
Get me
over.
back to Florida. Dude, that was hilarious.
Oh.
I just
I don't
looked-
play with that shit because you can't hit it. Look, goosebumps won't go away. That's why I carry like crosses and baby Jesus on me because I hope they protect me. Did I mess it up
So
again?
what happened to you that that you got this fear of ghosts?
Philippines.
This everybody.
Everyone in the Philippines believes in. Most of the guys, right? Like whatever, religious beliefs and all these things. Me as a kid, I had a personal experience.
Smells nice in here now, by the way.
It does. And this is usually what it is. It gets cold. It's cold in here. You smell someone like, oh, that's the perfume that the old lady was wearing, right? Whether it's black or white.
Well, you
whatever.
guys had a lot of superstition there.
Oh
with
my
the
gosh,
spirits
tons.
and stuff?
Yeah, tons. Oh my gosh. And one of there's always one, like the chupacabra type stuff, right? They're half man that falls away and flies and eats people. We used to see that and all that stuff. Like looking in, like the big, in the Philippines, there's a lot of these big clay vases and bars, whatever you call them, and they put plants on them. And as a kid, we used to play hide and seek and jump in them and, you know, whatever. And there was always stories of you go in one of those, the wrong one, you could, excuse me. I'm telling you, sneezing too is also another freaking sign of a ghost trying to take over, tickling shit. But God damn, I'm uncomfortable now.
So you guys would jump into these things and you
you
fall
disappear.
into like
the kid will just be
spirit
gone.
world?
Yeah, like kids will just be gone. You're like, what just happened?
Why do parents tell their kids this
It
stuff?
wasn't the parents. It was always like the helpers. Like they were always the ones that like,
Who?
like the helpers. Like in the Philippines, there was always like you always had If you were like middle class or something, you would always like have a helper, like a cook that would clean the house.
Dude,
and
if you're
cook.
in America, if you got helpers, you're
You're
upper crust.
yeah. In the Philippines, that was like a normal thing. Like you had someone cook for you or something like that. And that was a babysitter.
So that's interesting that you're telling us at the beginning, like the extravagance of shooting and stuff was a financial burden, but you would have somebody cook for you.
Yeah. We had two.
So that must have been pretty cheap.
It was very cheap. Yeah. I don't know. Like I think they'll make $10 a month.
So that's interesting. As I'm going to say, you said that maybe you wouldn't have enough food to eat as a child. Is this just like you said that you would eat because you weren't sure if you're going to eat tomorrow?
No, because they made us eat like vegetables and stuff like that.
You wanted some cow.
And I wanted meat, rice, eggs, and protein. That's my diet. And the second they start putting vegetables on there, I was like, I don't want to eat that. We didn't go out to many restaurants neither. Shooting was always allowed us to go out to restaurants that we couldn't afford because the guys that we shot with owned some of these restaurants. So we'd get invited, like after training or after a match, they'd be like, hey, come to my restaurant. And we're like, come to this restaurant. We'd go there. And my dad would be like, hey, this is a lot of food. Like, are we going to split this? And I remember, like, it's okay, we can handle it, but we can't do this like every day. And the guys would be like, oh, no, this is on me. This is my shop.
Wow.
And you're like, oh, dang. And so that was also a cool thing that I got to do. Yeah, like shooting literally opened doors for me that I never even knew existed. Put it that way. Shooting is, if you take away shooting for me, I'd try to fight you for my life, because that's literally the stuff that allowed for me to experience the life that I live the way I live now because of shooting. I'm allowed to be able to go and hang out at places that I never even knew would be possible, go to places that I never knew would be possible, meet the people that I see, and then looking back, and now, you know, my kids and my wife, and I'm like, man, we do all right. And a lot of it was just through shooting.
What do you think you would have done if it wasn't the shooting?
Computers. Yeah. Would have done some computer stuff. Eventually, maybe run my own shop of some sort, fixing computers. I don't know. I was very small-minded, but it wasn't like a grand scheme of things. I just like work. I like physical work. I liked, if I knew the process, I didn't care how much you gave me the work, and I would eat up all the work whenever I was working with a team. I said, dump me all the work, I know how to do this, and I would just crank it away. And I didn't care if my shift ended at 3:30 or 4:30, I would continue to work because I enjoyed it, and it felt the pleasure of like completing things, like done. Okay, cool, what's the next one? Because this one I don't know, and that would be hard for me to do, and I would learn it. Once I learned it, give me all of them, and I would do it. And that was the same attitude I had with the government. Like when I went to the government, I was working in the academy. No one wanted to work what's called stage 2 remediation. Stage 2 remediation is like the last resort for this particular agent to shoot well enough to pass the qualification and keep his or her job.
Take a dude that can't shoot or can't shoot well enough and fix them.
But the program, when he looked at it, it was very tedious. It was 5 days of training. You spent 8 hours a day with the shooter and all this stuff happening, and then the shooter doesn't do well, and late nights and long days, and you're spending one-on-one on this dude, and you're not flexible with the hours, and you were stringent with this. So I saw that and learned the process. Said, hey, so I told the instructor, I told my boss, I said, hey, don't give any other stage 2 to anyone. Give it to me. Any stage 2 that comes in for this entire year, give it to me. And they're like, are you sure about that? That's really, really hard on anyone. Everyone complains about it. I said, no, I want it. I want everyone to take a break. Let me have it. And I want to know what this stage 2 program and see if it can make it better.
This is at the Air Marshals?
Yeah, this is the Air Marshals. And then so in the academy. And so I did it the whole year. I did it myself the whole year. Once in a while, they'll throw me a partner. I said, don't even do that. I was like, you don't need a partner with me. If you don't want to, you can hang out. So I would start sending out the partners away, the guys that would observe and stuff like that, because they would also have to do the work. I said, no, I'll eat all this. Don't worry, man, relax and do all that stuff. So anyway, I did it for the full year. At the end of the year, I came up with a solution. I said, this is what we're going to do. Instead of 5 days, we're going to do 3 days of training. And I said, the reason why we'll do 3 days, they're like, well, you're cutting on the training for 3 days, and if they fail, they can sue us. I said, no, there's a whole lot of benefit here. It's like before, it was trained for 4 days, 5 days, and then the afternoon on Friday, before they get shipped back, they're qualifying on the last 3 hours of their day.
Smoked.
So they're smoked, they're burned out, and they're qualified. They have 3 chances. So once they fail the first one, nerves and everything, they don't have a chance. There's no chance to fix. So I said, I'm going to do a lot of damage, and I know I can do a lot of damage with the person and help them within the first 2 days. If you give me 8 hours with anyone, I can make them a lot better shooters. So I said, I'm going to annotate everything, and I'm going to start changing a little bit of the way this program, and I want you to approve it, and I try see if you can approve it. So the supervisor was really hesitant in doing this, and then the SAC approved it. I said, all right, JJ, it's on you, man. He goes, if this doesn't work out, this is not going to look good on you. I said, no problem, but I have a good feeling. So what we started what I started to do was, before I got approved, was I would start running a mock-up the way I wanted the drill, but I would start running it within the program, right? So instead of like Friday would be the final test.
So they're training for it the whole time and they don't know it.
And then Wednesday I would throw one initial test qualifier, and the test qualifier, if they passed, I would change the program into like Friday afternoon, and then Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, or if they failed, I would reprogram them, pay attention to what was their weak point and where they fell apart, target those for Wednesday afternoon and Thursday, and then have another qualifying moment on Thursday afternoon, and then if they fail again, fix them Friday morning, and then one more chance on Friday afternoon. And this gave an opportunity for the instructor to be able to fix that particular area that this particular shooter's messing up. So I liked it. And then if they pass Wednesday night, Wednesday morning, we could technically end the training right there because they passed. They don't need to qualify for the next quarter or year, and we can assess it if they need it or not. And then the way I sold it was budget. We could save money instead of paying this guy per diem and hotel and all this stuff, travel here for Thursday and Friday. We can put him back to work on Thursday and Friday. So they really like that and then all that stuff. So while I was teaching the stage 2 remediation, I started seeing and taking results. Every time we shot on Wednesday, guys had their best scores. By the time we shoot Friday, their scores were this. So I gathered all the data from years previous. I did all this freaking math. And then, this is pure work. So I'm just gathering Asian and charts for freaking 1-on-1. So I'm doing all this. And these are the years, average scores, 265 out of 300. And it goes, when I took over, it was about 273 out of 300, right? I was like, but it was still the same program. And I said, I believe if I do this program, I can bump that even higher. And then we changed it, and it went up to like 280 something. Awesome. And it was and then there were less people returning back. It was a lot less. Before it was like, this guy, we're probably gonna see him next year again. And I was like, man, that can't be. We can't.
His skills would taper off, and then he'd have to come back
again
and get tuned up.
With this training, and they felt there's less and less people coming back. And I'm like, man, that was really cool. So they like that program. So it was one of those things that I'm not afraid of work. Show me what to do, give me the process, and I'll follow that process. And if I can figure out a way to make it better, I'll make it better. And that's the same way I run my classes. My classes, every time I teach, I'm like, man, I could have run this better, this drill better. I'm going to redo it. So the next class I teach, even though you just took the class 3 months ago, and you're like, oh man, you taught that completely different. I learned this differently. My God, you talked about this, and I totally missed that time. And I'm like, no, my class is always evolving. And then I'm always also teaching myself in competition what works and what doesn't. So I'll try to bring that back to my classes. And how do I teach this to somebody? They just helped me in this match. I'm going to try to prove it again. But once I prove it, I'm going to figure out how to teach it, how to run it in a class, what specific drill, what are the concepts that we're working on here. So it makes it a very dynamic class. It's not the same class every single time. It's always somewhat different.
That's awesome. What classes do you teach?
Performance shooting, basically. High-speed marksmanship, performance shooting. It's just a fancy way of basically talking about the fundamentals and applying it in a very efficient manner. That's all. What
fluff or nonsense do you see in this space? You don't need to call anybody by name. You ain't got to say like XYZ company. And you don't even need to be specific with like a drill. But like, what fluff do you think people are investing energy in learning to shoot better that is a waste of time?
I don't know. I would say it used to be a long time ago. Like, people used to say stuff like, oh, I'm a much better point shooter. I'm an instinctive shooter. No, those are like the fluff end. But I guess so many people have been called out so many times for so long nowadays that you start to realize there's not much you can get away with anymore at this point. Like, right. You say the wrong thing, people get called out.
Shot timers film targets. Targets don't lie.
Whether you do it right or wrong, it's out there in social media. So there's not much really. To me, there's a couple of funky ways to get certain things done. I'm not a big proponent on like, just don't worry about your trigger, grip the gun harder and shoot it. That works only to a certain distance. You can get away with a really shitty trigger as long as your structure is good and your grip is solid and just using that sight to a certain distance. By the time you get to like 25 and the real distance is 25, 30, 40 yards type shooting, you can't rely on just a solid grip anymore. You have to now actuate the trigger correctly and all that stuff. Or those are the only thing. Like, some people will still hold on to that. Like, hey, grip is real important over trigger. And I'm like, well, grip is like a Band-Aid fix to me. It's like, let me fix the trigger first, then I'll hit on the grip after. It's like, I'll make the grip better for sure, because that's going to help you in the speed type stuff. But any accuracy stuff, I was like, we got to work and allow for you to be able to just work the trigger without having even a solid grip. Because once you have a solid grip with a really good trigger, your shooting just got better. Because at least it did for me.
One of my mentors, Bob Housingay, I don't know if you ever remember his name. He was I think he was a 6-time national champ at
name
IPSC guy
sounds
back in the
sure
day.
familiar.
He was a police chief in Comanche, Iowa. Hell of a gunsmith, still around. He's part of Masayoub's group of trainers. He'd always do the demonstration. Like one day I had a J-frame on me. He's like, let me see that. So upside down, offhand, just explaining that, you know, that theory, like, yes, grip helps, but watch this. You know, like I'm lining the sights up and pressing the trigger, and a bunch of people are like, I want to shoot the J-frame upside down. Shut up, idiots. You know, like, let's get back to what we're doing. Right. Okay, so that's I think those kinds of things, maybe the goal has to be more defined, right? Like, whoa, I'm just trying to shoot IPSC silhouette from 7 feet away. So like, okay, if that's all you ever want to do with the gun, then yeah, that's great. Like I got a carbine course we do, and guys will call me amazed that they got to shoot a 5-inch target at 100 yards with their red dot, or a A-zone at 200 yards. Some of them are hitting a 5-inch target at 200 with the red dot, and they're amazed. And I'm like, well, you never tried to do it. You just start laying on the ground or blazing targets at 25 feet with it's a carbine. You know, it's made to do that. It's literally like they never had a good zero. So like we get a good zero and we verify the zero, and all of a sudden, like magically, this gun will do what it was built to do.
Like the potential is there. You just never tapped into it.
Yeah. What things would you go back and change if you could? Anything? Like not buy those shoes, or maybe not work with a certain technique, or maybe, you know.
That's a good one. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, just anything. Would you change anything? I mean, it's a weird question, right? Because you think about like even like a failed relationship leads you to the person that you're with, right?
Because whatever I did previously is who I became today, and I'm pretty happy with who I am today. The one thing I would change is probably follow through on joining the AMU. That probably would have fast forwarded my career. I don't know where would it ended up anyway, but
instead of doing that contract gig.
Yeah, I would have still loved to have done the contract. That was a world. That one right there with the friends that I made, the connection and the network that I made throughout the industry, in the government side and stuff. Like I have an inside the government and all that stuff, with just the reputation that you built within that. As a competition shooter, that was a different route that a lot of us took. I was the one that took the real world type application. I would have loved to have spent some time and done the AMU, Army. I could say I served and all that stuff, but I did the DHS thing, and that was like my service, right, for like 10 years or something like that. But the AMU thing, having the experience that whole grind in, grind out of what they do, spending sometimes shooting at that time 2,000 rounds in the morning, 2,000 rounds in the afternoon, just training all the time. Like I'd never had that opportunity to do that. So that would have been a really cool thing to be able to experience. Like that's the only thing that I'd go, maybe I would have, if there was something I can change, it would always, I look back and go, I would have had a great time shooting with the guys in the AMU.
You might have ended up with friggin' arthritis from all that anyway.
Either that or freaking a baby mama in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Sure.
Who knows, right?
Perfect segue into the final couple of questions I have for you. So what's a day look like? You get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
I do. I get up about 3:40.
Drink 3 raw eggs or some weird shit.
In the morning, drink a pre-workout drink, go right to the workout from
coffee,
5.
No coffee?
Depends on the day. They usually try to do coffee around lunchtime.
Morning coffee. You're not a guy that's like gotta like go do his press and.
Yeah, no. I do that only lunchtime. Sometimes, not even a lot, but pre-workout. If I'm home, right? If I'm home, I do my workout. Sometimes pre-workout, sometimes don't. If it's lifting, I like to do a pre-workout.
You lift weights?
Yes, a little bit. Not as much. I know, suspect. The shirts are just tighter and tighter. That's all it is. And then I get back around 6 o'clock, 6:15. I play right now with the dog. I play with the dog a little bit.
What kind of dog you got?
Australian Shepherd. Pretty awesome little guy. And then while everyone's still sleeping, I start cooking breakfast. And I want breakfast to be laid out and be done. Sometimes I'll get fancy with it because I have time, so I'll research and Google, and it'll have like fancy French toast or whatever it is. I get really crazy with it's like a 3-course meal when whatever dad's home, right? So wife wakes up, she likes breakfast. I'm like, here's your avocado sliced and all this stuff, and toast and healthy food, and then here's your burrata cheese on your whatever egg, and here's my kids. Like, hey, y'all just want bacon. My little girl wants scrambled eggs and sometimes omelet with her toast and Nutella. My little boy just wants rice and bacon, and sometimes he just wants cheese on top of the weirdest thing in the world on top of his rice. So like, let's throw that in the water. So I'll have all those options laid out, and then I'll eat Obviously, I'll have my protein shake already at 6, but I'll eat when they wake up at 7:30.
Why obviously? Why would it be obvious to any of us that you've had a protein shake by 6?
Anyone that works out right after, you have to drink protein shake within 30 minutes. I just always fixate when
somebody tells me obviously, as in like, why is it obvious to me that you've had a protein shake by 6?
Because your muscles goes to atrophy within 30 minutes if you don't drink protein shake.
No shit.
Obviously.
Right. Just learned something new.
So anyway, I've drank my protein shake, a good 40, 60 grams of protein already on there, right? And then I'll eat my second breakfast with them. I'll eat and join them again for breakfast, and then I take them to school, drop them off. My wife starts work. She works usually from home now, which is cool. I take the kids to work, to school, drop them off, do whatever I need to do with the kids, and then I come back, leave for the range, set up my stuff, bring it to the car, change the car, whatever it needs, and then go to the range, train from about 9:30, 10 o'clock, all the way till about 12. I get there around 10:30, and I spend about 15 minutes setting up, and then it takes me.
Are you alone?
Sometimes, a lot of times my dad is with me, but he's been traveling a lot this year, so it's just usually me alone, yeah.
You don't have people bothering you, a private place?
I don't. There's a lot of people that stop by, and I shoot in a public range, so people come in and out, and they just want to see, because the kind of shooting I'm doing is different, and sometimes they think it's impressive, whatever. It's really boring type of stuff that I do, but a lot of people are like, hey, can I train with you?
Like real isolated stuff.
Yes, I do like 30-yard shots, slow aim fire, but I'll mix it up with some fast stuff and go right back to a 30-yard shot.
So people might approach you and ask if they could train with you. How's that usually?
A lot of times people are like, hey man, he goes, you and I shoot together, and I'm like, oh yeah, mind if I practice with you one day? And I'm like, and it's hard for me to like no, you can't.
Do you ever say like, can I come into your office and just start typing shit on your computer? That would be my response. Oh, you're a carpenter? Can I come cut some shit on your job site, pal? You're a massage therapist?
That's true, because to me, practice is my work. That's why it gets
that's
feel
what I'm
weird.
Saying. Yeah.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah. Can I come flip some burgers at your restaurant? Get the fuck out of here, pal. I'm working.
So I usually just say like, well, maybe one day. I was like, right now I'm really working towards the next match. That's kind. And then a lot of people sometimes I've had other people train with me, like this guy Ramos, he's a really good dude. I was like, you know what, let's try you out. And my dad will give me the final say whether yes or no moving forward.
Like having him as a training partner?
And I go, hey, listen, sometimes my dad was like, no, this is not working out. We can't.
He's a drag.
That guy just asks too many questions, talks too much, and we can't get reps. We only have an hour and a half to train, and he spent 30 minutes talking. Like, we don't do that. So I'm like, all right, so my dad and I are very efficient. He tapes, tells me my hits. I tell him my hits. I'm like, Dad, this target, this target, this target, and tell me where they are. And he goes, yep, this target, you're right, this target, you're right, this target, you were off a little bit. Instead of 2 alpha, there's an Alpha Charlie. Do you know?
Are you guys indoors doing this?
Outdoors. Yeah, and I'm loading my mags, and once he come back, he runs the clock, I run the drill and all that stuff. And so I run that till about 12 o'clock, and my range is about an hour away, right? So it's like 60 something miles. So 12 o'clock, and I get home around 1. When I get home around 1, I'll usually spend that time either cleaning some of the guns, or not necessarily cleaning the guns, cleaning the car and getting the stuff out. And my dad and I will go and spend our time together at the gym for either the sauna, recovery, and stuff like that. And then around 2:30, 2:40, I got to get home and pick up the kids. And then once the kids are home, I'll take them to either Code Ninja, tutoring, or jiu-jitsu. And then 5 o'clock happens. 5:30, 6 o'clock, that's when their jiu-jitsu starts. We go pack up, and whatever homework we did and didn't do, my wife will still work. And usually I'm like, hey, just stay home, you do dinner. Or sometimes she'll come with me, drop the kids off to jiu-jitsu, and we'll just stay there and watch them. And sometimes I'll roll right after, right? Because the adults class go right after that, and they'll get to stay with me. Or my wife will be like, you know what? We'll just take the kids home because it's going to be a late day for them already. And then they go home, and I get home around 9:30. And then it's like, all right, my time was spent with my wife, my kids a little bit, cuddle, go to bed, and sometimes my wife and I will try to catch a show for 15 minutes. That's our alone time.
Hold hands.
Yeah, hold hands, caress her hair as much as I can. And then we not rack out. I've had a full day of like going, and now it's time to hit the bed. And when I hit the bed, it takes me about a minute to fall asleep. Yeah.
When do you dry fire?
So I dry fire sometimes in the morning as my warm-up. So if I go in the morning, in the gym, if I work out in my gym, I'll dry fire for about 15, 20 minutes, and that'll be my warm-up. And usually when I'm dry firing, I'm sweating, I'm getting the bloods going and stuff like that.
Do you have a routine that you've done so much that you just do it, or do you say, okay, I'm going to practice transitions, and you get some targets on the wall? No.
I just do my draw. I hit the same thing. I'll do about 50, 100 draws, and then I'll do 50, 100 reloads, draw, reload, draw. I mean, present, draw, reload, present. I'll do that a few times, about maybe 50, depending on the day. If it's going good, 50 is good. And then I'll do some transition target, pop, reload, pop, and I'll just always add a reload, always add a transition. I'll add some footwork into there, and within 15 minutes, I'm like almost drenched in sweat. And then it's like, get that stuff off of me, then I go on a bike, get my legs going, and then either I'll hit a workout on a bike.
Home gym?
Yeah, a sprint on the treadmill or lift some weights. Yeah.
That's super cool.
Pretty cool, but I got sucked into this thing called Burn Boot Camp right now, and that's what I'm doing a lot.
You got sucked in nothing. You agreed.
I did.
You
It's a
chose
choice. It's a
to
choice.
go do it.
It was my wife strong arming me, and if I didn't go, she would put a bullet through my hand. So I went.
He's joking.
I'm
His
totally
wife
joking.
would not shoot him.
So
but
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got to be.
I know.
I got banned from PayPal yesterday.
I've been banned from PayPal for a long time.
I never have. It's literally how we conduct all of our couple websites. And so I'm very careful about the things we put on the internet, and I still got banned. And so I don't want people thinking like, whoa, JJ's wife is a psycho. I'm going to shoot him in the hand.
I know. You say that and it gets taken out of context. Like, that was just it. Yeah.
He's abused. He's abused.
No, she's an awesome lady.
What is something that people don't know about you? Something people don't know about you?
People, because I work out so much, people assume I love working out. I dread going to the gym. Yeah.
Are you one of those weirdos though that says that? Is it like a hot pepper? Like, oh man, this thing hurts, but I love it. Is it like that?
No. So I was never a big guy. Never liked the gym. I was intimidated by the gym. I worked out at home. My dad helped me work out and started doing that. And then when I got into the contracting world, the military guys showed me how to like work out. You can work out every day. You won't get hurt. You can work out twice a day if you can, right? As long as you're smart about it and stuff like that. And then I started to build some sort of muscle development and felt a little bit more confident. But I could only work out in places where I was very familiar with everyone. So public gyms, I don't like it. I don't like public gyms because I can't control who the crowd. The gyms I worked out with for like the first since 2002 all the way till 2015 was all within my office work. So I worked in this contract. We had a gym in there, so all the guys I work with, we can work out together. Same thing in New York field office. When I was in the New York field office, my gym was right next door. So it's the guys that are in there are the guys that I work with, and I know every single one. So now if you take me to a random public gym, I don't like it because I don't like anyone there. So I hate the loss of control of what this guy's thinking, what this guy's doing, his background. I don't know him. Who do I have to be careful with? Everyone's in shape, so everyone is a threat to me. Like, I don't like that. Like, my brain just starts spinning. So I don't like going to the gym at all. I hate that stuff. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get going. And those are the things that just in my head. And then I go to the gym and it's like, this Burn Boot Camp, I always like randomly visit like random places.
What the heck is it? Is it like a CrossFit-y kind of thing?
It's kind of like CrossFit, but like you modulate your weight according to you. And there are heavy days, there are light days, but I haven't.
So this is a sales pitch.
I don't know.
Get women into the gym, get people into the gym.
It's people, really, yeah. It was meant for women.
Burn Boot Camp.
Yes. I'm not even sponsored by a sportsman by them. They're expensive as hell, so I go. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But I just enjoy it. I enjoy the freaking community. I go there and they make me do stuff that I'm like, I really didn't feel like doing sprints today.
You just brought something up. Do you only share things or talk about things if people sponsor you?
So yes and no. I behind closed doors, there are certain things that I can talk about, but I got to be careful what I say sometimes. Promoting a certain product that I'm not sponsored through. Like if I'm shooting a gun, I can't shoot a gun, a different gun, right? Or something like that. So there's just certain things where I can't do things publicly anymore because of contractual obligations and stuff like that.
Why don't we talk about CCW Safe since we're sitting here in one of their properties?
Yeah.
How'd you get hooked up with these cats?
Knowing the right few people, like literally getting to know. Justin gave me a call one day, and I think it was Shin or Jeremy, one of those guys, right? I think it was all three of you guys. Well, like whatever. And Justin was like, "Hey, I need you to talk to this guy. Do you have insurance when you conceal carry?" I said, "No, I don't." I was like, "I've actually been very concerned about that. I have a lawyer, but he's very expensive. Every time I call him, it's like 15 minutes is like rounding up $100 or something like that." So he's like, "No, these guys will protect you for this." And I looked at the program and I'm like, "All right, what's the difference between them and USCCA or something like that?" And I'm like. And I was like, and then I started doing more research into it. And then I started doing more research before I jumped into it. And then they basically were like, "Man, there's totally different program that they have." And I go, "Okay." And then the one thing that sold me the most was they were the only ones I think in the industry, I think still today, I don't know if today, you're talking about a few years ago now, several years ago now that I started with the company, that they were the only ones to take a murder straight to an acquittal, and they had that experience, and I saw
Still,
the results with that. Yeah, I think that's they're the only ones still. So he paid his monthly due or yearly due annual fee, and I think the overall
$480,000,
almost $500,000 for the entire thing with the witness. Expert something or whatever it was, but yeah, expert witnesses that they had. So anyway, I was like, no one else can say that, right? And so to me, if I want to hire someone that protects or trains my dog, I want him to have experience that has done whatever he's saying that he could do. Your dog's gonna attack. This is my experience. I had several dogs, and these are the guys I train, and look at the results from this. I don't want a guy that's like, oh yeah, this is what we say we do, but we've never really been tested. These guys have been tested through and through. So that was like an easy play for me.
You did the same thing I did, just asked a bunch of questions.
I did.
Arrived at a conclusion based on data.
It was easy. It was so. When they told me that story, I was like, oh wow. It's like, let me see who else did that. And it didn't exist.
You know what really sold me was these guys. Like, we're out here, you guys are shooting.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to lunch, we're going to dinner, and even before I actually did business with them, I became friends with them just from talking to them or seeing them.
Yeah.
It's like, well, these are actually dudes I want to hang out with, which is meaningful to me. Like, if you're 100%. A piece of shit, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to do business with you. I don't want to promote your brand. I mean, there's like cool stuff some guy makes, and it's like, yeah, that guy makes a really nice widget, but he's a real asshole. Yeah. Right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, there's guys like
that.
You
won't hang out with him though, but you'll buy his product. But
even then, I still don't even want to, but I will, because it's a great product. Correct. But you do it begrudgingly.
Yes.
But these are like good dudes. Correct. Like, you want to hang out with them. So do you have that same experience?
100%. Like so I'm fortunate enough now to be in the point of my career where I get asked more to represent a company as opposed to me seeking more now, right? Which is really cool. It's such a blessing to be in that position, but I don't have to sign up to a company because it's like, knock on wood, not to say anything, but it's like, I don't need to sign up with another company, but it's like, to me, it's more about the relationships that I build moving forward. I'm at the point in my career now as well that I'm like, what's more important, right? And it's like relationships. Like, I want to have long-lasting relationship. I want to have built a long-term, grow with the company if possible. So most of my sponsors, even Beretta, considering they're fairly new. I've been with them for 4 years. I'm probably going to be Beretta for the rest of my life. But Armscore, I've been with them for 10 years. Seymour, I've been shooting for them for 20 years. I've gotten Guga Rivas, I've been shooting for him for about 10 years. Like, I've gotten so many sponsorships that I've been with since I was starting out, when I was a nobody, essentially. Techwear, I wear they're the ones that make my jersey. I've been with them for, 2004. So that's
cool.
It's almost 19 years, right? Like, I have a lot of these different sponsors. There are new sponsors that come in, and I'm like, man, these guys mean a lot. Like, Howitzer's one of those guys that come in, and their whole spiel was to help the law enforcement community. They want to be able to provide free law enforcement community through their clothing company and support that and fund it. And then now they're $2 million worth into it, just funding active law enforcement training to train for free. So I've been doing that all over the dang place. I think me alone, I'm going to be covering about 1,000 law enforcement officers that's trained under me for free. All they have to do is show up and provide their time and ammunition. So it's pretty cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. So these are the things that to me is more important. So like the CCW guys, gosh, I've been friends with Justin for so damn long, man. Like, I've known them, right? And then I got to meet the bosses, and then those guys I thought was intimidating, and then freaking got guys like Kyle that just wants to shoot the shit. Stan, sorry, but Stan.
Why are you apologizing?
I said shoot the shit. I said no, I cursed, but I guess I cursed earlier with the ghost.
You actually said quite a few vulgar words.
I did. Sorry, I freaked out. There was a ghost that was looping around me. I think I was possessed. That was the ghost telling you spirits get in you and make you do weird stuff. Anyway,
you're such an idiot.
Like Stan, and Kent comes over, and we're just super cool dudes. So now when I go to shows and I get to hang out with them in the booth, I'm looking forward to it because I'm like, I can connect with them. I'm not sitting here. Yes, it's not like CEO's Beretta's such a big company, right? I'm like, man, I don't know how this is gonna work. Like, this is one of the biggest companies I've ever worked for. They have so many avenues. I don't know, but guess what? I have a friendly relationship with the CEO. Like, not unfriendly. When I see him, he gets elated, and he's like, hey, what's up? And we hug, and we talk, and he's like, hey, he's always like, when can we sneak out for lunch real quick? You and I just talk. And I'm like,
Right now, sir.
Whatever you want. You're the boss. I'm here working, right? And it's like I'm not working for a company. I'm building these relationships, and not only the CEO of Beretta USA, a CEO of Beretta Italy, and then I got to meet the Mr. Beretta himself, and we talked for a little bit, and he was thanking me, and he's like, man, he goes, it's cool to have you as an asset for the company. And then someone whispered next to me, he's like, man, a 500-year-old company just considers you an asset. Think about that. And I'm like, I never even thought of it that way. I'm just doing my job is to represent them as best as I can. And he goes, I'm hoping I'm doing it right. And then it's like these relationships continue to build.
I'm having a really hard time not hating your guts right now.
Why?
I'm just joking. Why? I mean, listen to you.
Life is good.
I barely work out and look at my pipes, and I have these lovely dinners with my family, and I go train every day and hang out with my dad. And we get to choose who we get to shoot with.
My dad lives next to me.
Second oldest corporation on the planet. Comes and tells me I'm super important. I think it's lovely. I'm not jealous at all. I think it's amazing.
It doesn't make sense.
Wonderful, and I'm going to trip you in a minute when on that.
I know. You're just going to trip me and get my back and start choking me.
No, I think it's great. This is cool. I think it's cool to to be able to talk like this and share some of this because people, you've always been approachable. Every time I've ever run into you over the years, you're jovial. I think you truly enjoy visiting with people. There's guys that show up at say SHOT Show or NRA, or they're out in the space with their fans or whatever.
Miserable, yeah.
And they hate it.
Sure.
Like kind of like a in a different space. I mean, not to take anything away from you. If you go away from the shooting sports, you're JJ,
yeah.
right? You're not John Bon Jovi, even though I'd love to see you with long blonde hair, right? But in that space,
living on the edge.
You're John Bon Jovi. Right? You're Dirk Diggler.
Dirk Diggler is more like it, yes.
Of the shooting world. You're Dirk.
Yes.
In my mind, you're Dirk Diggler.
You can take this so many ways, but yes.
But there's guys that oh man, I got to go talk to these assholes, or they go to class. I've known guys, I've been to the class as a friend of the instructor.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just know him, like I know you, I come to the class, so I have a little rapport with you, and then you're like, yeah, look at all these idiots showing up in the parking lot. It's like, man, these guys are paying your friggin' bills.
Damn right.
Right? Like complaining, like, yeah, this guy's optics are falling off. Good, that's why they're here. Show them how to put it on, or whatever.
Right, do it right. Like,
you're not like that, is what I'm saying.
No, I think we all have a job, and I think it's all perspective. Like I never thought I'd be able to live the life that I live with doing what I do. So I'm appreciative of it every day. Like, I didn't think I would ever become sponsored by a big company, and it's like, here I am doing the pro shooter life. Like, every day I wake up, I'm like, this is freaking awesome.
Few people make a living shooting guns.
Very few, yes.
Yeah, very few people.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I can. I do it in a different way than you do. You're more of like a pretty model on a runway. Just joking.
You're talking about my lifespan's very short. My window.
Not at all. No, not at all. I mean, you're at the pinnacle of it, of course. But few people can actually. Everybody's like wants to make a living golfing or fishing or whatever their hobby is. 100%. It's very hard to do. It's not easy, and you've done it. I think we've covered a bunch of topics. I want to spend a little time with a pistol and film a couple things with you.
Do it. Yeah.
Parting words. If these people that are watching never are blessed to spend time with you, one, before you answer that question, how do people find you to find out about classes, products, services, companies you align with? You've got a website?
Yeah. So
it's on your hat, probably.
Yeah, this is that prototype hat.
It's a cool logo.
It is pretty cool. Howitzers, they're going to be building a line of clothing for me, which is really cool. Shorts, like the way I like my shorts for shooting, and like these are
like Daisy Dukes.
Yes, to show the quads and stuff like that. But no, so basically JJRacazatraining.com. Like that's
Again,
it.
Please.
Oh, sorry. JJRacazatraining.com is the new website that we've established to be able to create easy way.
Kind of like a landing page to get to.
Yeah, to click for a class that you want to, like, this location here, click and pay, and then you get the information for the class. It's very streamlined, it's really cool, helps my wife a ton. Or you can just email her, jessica.racaza@yahoo.com. She's the one that will facilitate coordinating my schedules and anything like that. You coordinate with me, nothing will happen. It literally just goes in one ear, out the other, and it might seem like, it's gonna happen unless my wife gets approved.
No shit, he's not lying. I have tried for about 5 years to do this, and I've run into him and been like, hey man, can you call me back so we can do that interview? And he'll be like, oh, you never called me? And I'll show him. I just yesterday opened my phone up to show him that I messaged him saying, I'm really looking forward to visiting with you. He thought I was spam.
Because he didn't have an iPhone. It was a green arrow.
He didn't even
so
open up the
respond.
text. He just thought I was spam. So basically, I'm just like Mickey Spam over here. So JJ Racaza.
At training.com is the website. And then my Instagram, if you just hit me up there, I can just give you the information. It's JJ Racaza. That's
And I'm sure in your bio there, you've got a link maybe?
It should be. I think it goes to my wife's email. I think for a long time, my wife would get random messages from random people. Instagram or social media is such a funny world, right?
I'll show you my pics if you show me yours.
Yeah, so she'll get pictures sent by random dudes. Good thing
To
it's always
her,
been
they
dudes.
don't
To
know.
her.
They don't know. They think they're messaging you, or
Yes,
they're
they
messaging
think
your
they're
wife.
messaging me.
And it's a dude.
It's like a bunch of dudes. That's my demographic. I'm telling you. You know how many people send me?
I'm so gonna start
on
sending
my
you so
DM,
many pictures.
If you guys ever have an idea, my DM, there's guys in there that will send me, and some of you guys probably watching this, will send me, it's like doing a pull-up with their shirts off, and be like, dude, how's my form? What do I know? What do I know about your form in pull-ups? How's my form in squats and you're wearing Daisy Dukes?
How's my form in this bubble bath? Is this loofah? Am I doing it right?
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Just pouring 2% milk all over themselves in the tub.
It was a hot day in the range training. Shirt off. Like, don't need to see this.
For real?
Buddy.
These are former students, friends, or just rando people you've never met?
Mostly random.
That's weird as shit.
Yes.
Justin, what do you think?
What's that?
Did you hear?
He was one of them.
That's how you guys met?
Oh, that is true. Where's my phone? It's over there.
Parting words. If these good people never get to meet you, if they can't afford to come to a class or time and space don't align for them to meet you in person, what would you leave them with? Anything.
If it's shooting related?
Anything that comes to mind. I could give two shits. Whatever comes to mind for you.
To me, whatever you're doing, just be consistent. No matter what it is, consistent. Motivation is never always there. Just do it for sure. Like every day. Do it for every day, whether you do it good or not. And find something you're passionate about and figure out a way to make money out of that. And that's how to live life. Because that's how I became living my life right now.
Unless you are trying to be like a lazy dirtbag, don't be a consistent lazy dirtbag.
No, you got to do something.
I think I just want to make sure because people are like, dude, I love eating Cheetos.
Yes. Well, there's money to be made on that now. You know that? There's different freaking weird things like streaming that online. There's a girl that makes millions of dollars streaming herself sleeping at night. Millions of dollars. Imagine that. This is a freaking world.
All right, I digress from my point. Do your thing. Eat those Cheetos. Yeah, but be consistent.
I think you have to have some sort, to me, the biggest thing is have to have some sort of obligation to serve a purpose in the world. Like, to me, that's it. Whether you're a giver, you're a teacher, you're, I don't know, a good person, I don't know what it is. For us, you and I teach, so that's our way of giving back into society. I think that's don't just be a dirtbag out there. Like, that's just shitty to be.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think it was...
I know. Now I know what it is. I think
it was Emerson that said the purpose of life is not to be happy. The rest of the quote paraphrased is but to be of value to others, to do something to make another person's life easier or better.
I agree.
Paraphrasing it.
I like that.
I hope you guys dug this conversation. I wanted to chat with him for a long time and maybe hear some stuff about his life different than, ooh, I shoot real good, look at all my medals, which is super impressive. It's cool to hear that, like, usually there's a lot of commonalities between champions in anything. You know, it could be, I've got biathletes and football players and all kinds of people that we've talked with. And at the end, you brought it there, consistency. So there's consistency. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a bunch of attitude things stuff like that you attach to that, but that's super cool. I hope you dug this discussion. If you did, share it, write some comments. If you guys are not familiar with CCW Safe, we're out here at their facility today. Shoot me a message or a DM. I'll surely share with you more about it. We've got a few videos that we filmed out here with Gary talking about that stuff. Go check this guy out. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. And let's go out on the range and see if you actually know anything.
Let's do it.
Is that a real laugh?
Yes.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.
I said I got me some gunfighter gun law. Gunfighter gun law, baby. Gunfighter gun law, no more gunfighter blues. Made in the USA, amazing lubricity, 100% synthetic, baby. So it's gonna last you longer. So go on carrytrainer.com and order yourself some gunfighter gun or gunfighter lube to get rid of your gunfighter blues. I said go on and order yourself some gunfighter lube. Yeah!